the same time, while everyone else was making simple maneuvers, you were strategizing your moves like a grandmaster. The skeptics looked on in disbelief as you completely redirected the course of events, dominating the very game they thought they controlled flawlessly. You entered the scene with chess mastery, while they came with checkerboard enthusiasm, plain, predictable, and amateur at best. While they were busy moving their lips, you were analyzing their patterns. When they celebrated prematurely, you were assessing risks. And then, when the moment came to act, you moved with an accuracy that left them bewildered, not even realizing the outcome until you were bathing in the glory of your victory. The distinction between a player and a leader is that they engage in checkers while you have conquered chess. Now, everyone recognizes who commands this game. In their minds, they had you all figured out. When they glimpsed you, they saw someone they could manipulate, control, and someone too feeble to compete on their level. They misinterpreted your patience as indecision and your silence as vulnerability. But unbeknownst to them, you were not just playing along. Instead, you were observing, learning, and preparing. In truth, you became the most formidable opponent they ever faced. Even though they regarded you as an easy mark, you made them think they were in charge. You held your tongue while they boasted about their supposed victories, smiled when they underestimated you, and nodded when they dismissed you. They thought they had the upper hand, but in fact, you were letting them expose their own weaknesses. Every insult, every sly maneuver, and every attempt to undermine you became critical data in your investigation. You were not simply standing by, you were learning how they operated. The problem with those who believe they are invulnerable is that they stop paying attention to their surroundings. They grow too comfortable in their delusions, assuming you would never fight back since you hadn't done so yet. You chose silence at a time when they were preoccupied celebrating empty triumphs, mistaking your calm for cowardice. They believed you were weak because you didn't engage at their level. They believed they had triumphed, but that was exactly the perception you wanted them to hold. All the while, they were wasting their efforts slandering, plotting, and contending with a version of you that was long gone. You were engaged in a significant endeavor. It wasn't about proving yourself to them or seeking their approval. Rather, you fixated on the grander vision, actions that truly mattered. While they were immersed in checkers, reacting impulsively and emotionally, you were immersed in chess. Strategic, calculated, and resolute. They spent so much time trying to undermine you that they failed to notice they were standing on shaky ground. Although they set traps, you never fell for them. They mentioned your name to try to tarnish your reputation, yet all they did was strengthen your resolve. By the time they realized you were not who they thought you were, the relationship had already reached a conclusion. You never needed their validation, nor did you have to play by their rules. Even though you gave them the illusion that they were in control, they were merely following the path you anticipated they would take. Once your move was made, the game was over. Checkmate. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine bright. Click the super thank you button and contribute $20 or more to plant faith-filled seeds that will touch countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom blossom through you. Some thought you would be an easy target. They watched you closely, waiting, convinced they were behind every one of your steps. They believed they understood your next move, how you would react, and when you would bend under pressure. Then, there was silence. Your withdrawal wasn't a sign of defeat, it was evidence of mastery. You didn't simply fade away quietly, you transformed into an enigma. While they were busily draining your energy, you reclaimed everything taken from you. When they expected you to respond, you chose to withdraw. when they began to realize that you had become unpredictable and elusive, that's when panic set in. The key realization here is that the game shifts when they can't pinpoint your position. When you limit access, refuse interaction, and cease feeding their egos, they lose control. Your responses, your presence, and their tracking of your every move were the foundations of their strategy. Yet, you managed the most powerful move possible, vanishing from their grasp without notice or explanation. Initially, they believed you were struggling. They thought it was their minuscule games that finally broke you, convincing themselves that you had lost and were hiding in shame. However, the flaw in those gripped by insecurity is their belief that silence equates to weakness. They assumed you had depleted your resources, but in reality, you were constructing everything beyond their view. You had mastered the art of obscurity. No longer would you deliver predictable reactions, nor would you defend yourself or disclose your next plan. When they found you unresponsive, anxiety surfaced. Despite combing through your social presence, they saw no posts. They inquired about your status, yet no one understood your journey at that moment. Those who once overlooked you now spent their days searching for signs of impending failure, but found none, for you weren't losing. Rather, you were climbing to new heights, making ghost moves. The entire board had shifted. It wasn't until they heard your name again that they recognized you were no longer in the space they left you. You were no longer anywhere near their league. They squandered time tracking your steps while you raced ahead, advancing quietly, building your victories and gearing up for something immense. This is what sets you apart. They assume minor roles. They depend on outside validation, seeking affirmation from others. You, on the other hand, understand that true power does not need to boast. Real strength quietly forges ahead until it becomes undeniable. They believed they could keep pace, that they held the reins. Yet, the moment you faded away, they understood how wrong they were. They can no longer find you. They relied on a continual cycle and structure to bolster their pride, feeding off your reactions, unable to thrive without your energy. Whenever they provoked you, they anticipated you to respond, at every beckoning of doubt. They waited for your return, but suddenly you came to a halt. No more responses, no more explanations, no more access. With that, their entire game halted abruptly. In the absence of noise, they were taken by surprise. They expected you to fight, to defend, to prove your worth. But while you were laboring, you allowed them to chatter on, while you remained contemplative, letting them assume. Even though you ascended, you allowed them to waste their breath, believing you had surrendered. They told themselves you were insignificant because you didn't mention their name. Yet, as time unfolded and your continued silence persisted, your assurance only grew. You are here for a reason. If you feel that calling, answer it. Click Join to unlock exclusive content, profound insights, and a powerful community at Chosen One Sanctuary. This isn't merely a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the Chosen Ones. As time elapsed, they began to wonder about your endeavors. They sought signs of failure, anticipating you would soon have something to contend with. The only thing that emerged from their quest was a deepening mystery. When someone is filled with insecurity, nothing drives them to paranoia quite like that which they cannot understand. The more knowledge they lacked, the more consumed they became with obsession. They began reaching out to you in unfamiliar ways, looking for clues, sending distractions that weren't directly aimed at you, trying to lure a response from you. In their youth, they believed they were the ones in control. But in truth, they were merely chasing shadows, endeavoring to find proof of their own relevance. This struggle illustrates why moving in silence can be profoundly liberating. When you cease to explain your identity, rationalize your choices, or even respond, you become an enigma. They tremble in fear because they cannot decipher your motives. They cannot forecast your movements, nor can they reclaim the power they once had over you. You can see that their identity was built on your validation. Their energy was derived from your emotions. But the moment you decided to prioritize your own journey, the moment you turned your focus inward, they lost their source of nourishment. It was then they understood that you were never the fragile one. You were the foundation. In their fixation, they ultimately stumbled. While they remained fixated, watching, waiting for a fissure in your resolve, you thrived. You continued to progress, constantly evolving, while they remained frozen in the past, entrapped in their own turmoil, endlessly replaying previous conflicts. You were busy crafting a future so far beyond them that catching up seemed impossible. They panicked, realizing they had overlooked the truth that you were never just another piece on their chessboard. You were the one holding the reins. They thought they had everything meticulously managed. They assumed they could twist your flaws against you, crafting their strategies based on the fragile foundation of your history. They whispered your name in spaces you hadn't even entered, attempting to besmirch your reputation. Believing you would fall into their carefully laid traps, they set those traps, but what they failed to grasp was that while they plotted against you, you were already rewriting the narrative. They believed they could capitalize on every misstep you made, yet you transformed each stumble into a stepping stone. Knowing that the truth shines brighter than deception, you let every rumor they manufactured run its course. Their fixation on your downfall blinded them to the reality that you had stopped playing their game entirely. Those who thrive on manipulation assume that everyone else operates by the same rules. They anticipate emotional reactions from you, desperate pleas for validation, and attempts to counter their claims. But you didn't waste your breath. While you were focused on building your legacy, they dug their own graves. They attempted to entrap you, yet you did not take the bait. They waited for your downfall, only to witness you ascend higher than ever before. As they recognized that their schemes were failing, they scrambled to reinvent their tactics, but it was too late. They had become so engrossed in their rivalry with you that they never took a moment to examine their own circumstances. They overreached, miscalculated, and played themselves out of the game through their own actions. What made them believe they held power over you? It vanished. The influence they wielded in the past evaporated because you refused to engage in their frivolous combat. Instead, you let them self-destruct. And what was your final triumph? You walked away untouchable. There was no need for you to argue, nor to validate your stance. Your silence speaks volumes. You allow your accomplishments to echo for you. As a result, they find themselves with no choice but to confront their failures while you continue to gather victories. They thought they had you cornered. It seemed they were in command. In the end, however, they were the ones who were duped. They believed they had all the time in the world, that you would always be nearby, ready to engage. While they focused on trivial skirmishes, you were determined to win the overall battle. Blessed by His grace, click Super Thank You and give $20 to Chosen One Sanctuary to spread His light. Your contributions cultivate seeds that nurture His kingdom. Be that blessing. It's not only that you conquered, you have also flourished. Consequently, they are now left in chaos, trying to decipher how they lost grip on a game they thought they commanded. Not once did you stoop to their level. You never needed to stoop down to their gutter, where they tried to pull you. Because you played your game with your own rules and timing, they could never match you. They were steeped in emotion, drowning in desperation to witness your downfall, too blind to recognize that you had already moved on to greater endeavors. Now, the tables have turned. Those very individuals who once scoffed at you, rolled their eyes, and questioned your potential now find themselves on the outside looking in. When they utter your name, it's not filled with mockery, it's imbued with awe, disbelief, and tinges of regret. They watch from afar, struggling to understand how you became untouchable, how you achieved what they deemed impossible. They anticipated your failure. They expected you to falter upon your return. Instead, you soared to unimaginable heights, putting you far beyond their reach. What plagues them most isn't your success itself, but the realization that they had no part in it. There was no need for dominance, there won't be any petty comebacks. There is only undeniable elevation. To simplify the matter, nothing stings more than witnessing someone they underestimated thrive in ways they believed were unfathomable. They were hunting for a response. They wished for you to be a victim. Instead, they were met with silence, success, and the crushing revelation that they were never a threat in the first place. Once, they laughed at you loudly and publicly. Your dreams were subject to scorn. They disdained your ideals and openly claimed you'd amount to nothing without their sanction. They overlooked your potential because they never afforded you the chance to prove your worth. But now, they are the ones making grand gestures, striving for merely a crumb of your acknowledgement. While you remained in their sphere, they mistook you for inconsequential. They convinced themselves you were beneath them as long as you were toiling and playing small. But once you ascended, once you surpassed their expectations, defied everything they thought they knew about you, then the shift occurred. The desperation took hold. They assumed you would beg to be included. They believed you would regret your departure. So convinced were they that you could never succeed without them that they never contemplated the possibility of your triumph. Now, they cannot fathom it. They rush about, searching for ways to reconnect, hoping you might glance in their direction, even if just for a moment. Their discussions about you have transformed into admiration-filled whispers. They're captivated by a blend of curiosity, intrigue, and jealousy that they struggle to suppress. These are the same voices that once speculated about you, now analyzing every move, scrutinizing your strategy, and trying to understand how the person they once dismissed became the person they now secretly revere. From the sidelines, they hold their breath, waiting for your acknowledgement, yearning to slide back into your narrative. Yet, you see them for who they are, opportunists trying to maintain relevance in a story no longer written by them. The irony is that you are unfazed. Their sudden admiration holds no value to you. Neither their fascination nor their fixation means anything because you don't need their approval. Despite the opportunities they had to stand alongside you, they chose skepticism over belief in you. They are the architects of their own misfortune. At this point, you are the highlight of the show, while they linger in the background. Observe them closely. They are free to speculate, indulging in their gossip. Regardless of their presence or absence, the performance must go on. The reality is that by the end of the day, their laughter has faded into silence. But what about you? To them, your voice is completely unheard. There was no need for you to engage in conflict. You didn't have to defend yourself. In fact, you weren't even required to offer a response. The only imperative was your growth. This journey unveiled every flaw they tried so desperately to hide. Your rise compelled them to confront the truths they'd avoided for far too long. In reality, their power was a facade, not nearly as formidable as they claimed. In truth, they were not even ahead of you on the journey. Their self-assurance was built on diminishing your worth. They forged their identities by keeping you beneath them, seeking validation in the illusion of superiority. They believed that as long as you were grappling with your own capabilities, and as long as you continued to justify yourself and engage with their absurdity, they held the reins. But once you decided to pause, once you recognized your growth had surpassed theirs. That's when their unease took root. They realized too late that they depended on you more than you ever depended on them. This was the crucial truth they were blind to. Without you as a target, stripped of their diversion, they had no choice but to face their own reflection. And that reflection was disheartening. They found themselves directionless, stagnant, having squandered precious years, conspiring against someone who was never really in competition with them. The truth is, they are exactly where they started. Now, scrambling to keep up appearances and claiming transformation that is devoid of substance. While everyone watches your every move, you're busy plotting your next advancement. With every rumor they spread, you are achieving victories. While they fixated on you, you focused on elevating your status. This discrepancy means they'll never catch up. They mistakenly believed they could outplay you despite playing a different game altogether. They were bold, fervent, and impetuous, caught up in short-lived triumphs. Your strategy, however, was calculated, played out over the long term. They relished insignificant wins, but you were building something they could never hope to attain. Now, the chasm between you is far too vast to cross. You've come to understand that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Some individuals only arrive when the feast is ready. Yet they were never there to contribute to its creation, never by your side when you needed them. They lacked belief in you, and what about those folks? They are now blocked from your life. At this moment, you are choosing to protect your energy. You navigate the currents of life and let your achievements be the only acknowledgement they receive. They wished for your downfall, but were instead forced to witness your ascent. This has compelled them to confront the one reality they weren't equipped to handle. The truth: you were never in short supply. You have always been enough. With brazen arrogance, they declared their superiority, expressing utmost certainty that you would never amount to anything without their help. They derided your efforts, dismissed your progress, and made it their mission to remind you continually that you were not on their level. But look at them now. They're imitating you. You can see them taking notes and scrutinizing your journey in a desperate attempt to unravel the mystery of how you achieved what they swore you would never attain. When individuals operate from a place of ego, they are so consumed by proving themselves that they fail to prepare for the day you rise above them. That is the pitfall of those who act out of ego. They never foresaw the tables turning. The concept that they might become the ones on the outside looking in was entirely foreign to them. As a result, they are now chasing after a type of success they once mocked. They believed they could erase you, erase your presence, and make you doubt your abilities. In truth, they only fueled your unstoppable drive. Every obstacle they threw your way turned into an opportunity for you. Each insult served to ignite your determination. Your resilience has grown with every attempt they made to break you, and now they long for your perspective.